Παρακαλούμε θερμά, μπορείτε να λάβετε ξανά τις θέσεις σας. Κυρίες και κύριοι, σας καλωσορίζουμε στην τελετή αναγόρευσης του κυρίου David Guralnick, καθηγητή του Πανεπιστημίου Κολούμπια των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών της Αμερικής, ως Επιτίμου Διδάκτορος του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών της Σχολής Επιστημών Αγωγής. Προσφώνηση από την πρίτανη του Πανεπιστημίου Ιωαννίνων, καθηγήτρια κυρία Άννα Μπατιστάτου.
Κυρία Γενικέ Πρόξενε της Αλβανίας στα Ιωάννινα, κύριε εκπρόσωπε του Δήμου Ιωαννίνων, πρώην πρίτανη, κύριοι εκπρόσωποι των πολιτικών κομμάτων, αξιότιμο μέλος του Συμβουλίου Διοίκησης του Πανεπιστημίου μας, αξιότιμη κυρία Αντιπρίτανη, αξιότιμη κυρία Κοσμήτορα της Σχολής Επιστημών Αγωγής, αξιότιμη κύριε Πρόεδρε του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών, αγαπητές και αγαπητοί συνάδελφοι, αγαπητές φοιτήτριες και αγαπητοί φοιτητές, κυρίες και κύριοι. Dear Professor David Guralnick, the University of Ioannina has the honor to confer upon you the title of Doctor Honoris Causa of the Department of Early Childhood Education of the University of Ioannina in recognition of your outstanding contribution to the field of e-learning design and strategic consulting. Κυρίες και κύριοι, θα ήθελα να σας παρουσιάσω εν συντομία την ακαδημαϊκή και επαγγελματική σταδιοδρομία και το ερευνητικό έργο του τυπόμενου. Ο κύριος David Guralnick είναι Adjunct Professor στο Teachers College του Columbia University, USA, και παράλληλα πρόεδρος και CEO στο Kaleidoscope Learning. Επίσης, έχει διατελέσει Chair στο μεταπτυχιακό πρόγραμμα σπουδών Concentration in E-Learning for the Workplace στο Teachers College, Columbia University, ΗΠΑ. Είναι ιδρυτής και chair στο The Learning Ideas Conference, ΗΠΑ, καθώς και διευθυντής στο Training Simulation Design and Development, Learning Sciences Corporation, Chicago, ΗΠΑ. Είναι διεθνώς αναγνωρισμένος στη χρήση της τεχνολογίας στην εκπαίδευση, καθώς και στις τεχνικές βελτίωσης της εργασιακής απόδοσης. Εφαρμόζει στη διδασκαλία του την εκπαιδευτική θεωρία μάθηση μέσω πράξης, learn by doing, ακόμη και στα διαδικτυακά εκπαιδευτικά προγράμματα. Δημιουργεί μια καινοτόμα προσέγγιση στην εκπαίδευση και τη μάθηση στον χώρο της εργασίας, βασισμένη τόσο στην έρευνα, όσο και σε προοδευτικές θεωρίες μάθησης. Μέσα από τη χρήση προηγμένης τεχνολογίας, οδηγεί τους εκπαιδευόμενους στη λήψη αποφάσεων μετά από προβληματισμό και κριτική σκέψη. Η εμπειρία του στο e-learning design, καθώς και η προσφορά του στη διαδικτυακή εκπαίδευση και στη χρήση τεχνικών προσομοίωσης, είναι ιδιαίτερα σημαντική. Ο καθηγητής David Guralnick σχεδίασε τη μέθοδο ηλεκτρονικής μάθησης Watch, Rate and Compare, η οποία έχει χρησιμοποιηθεί σε πληθώρα μαθημάτων και έχει βραβευτεί με το Comenius Award της Society for Pedagogy and Information της Γερμανίας. Παράλληλα, έχει σχεδιάσει και εργαλεία ηλεκτρονικής μάθησης για χρήση από εκπαιδευτές. Σημαντική είναι και η συνεισφορά του στην πρόθεση της έρευνας στον τομέα της ηλεκτρονικής μάθησης σε συνδυασμό με την πράξη. Ο καθηγητής David Guralnick έχει τιμηθεί με πολλά βραβεία, τόσο στη ΣΥΠΑ όσο και από διεθνείς οργανισμούς. Είναι συγγραφέας πολλών βιβλίων και εργασιών, καθώς και συντάκτης άρθρων σε επιστημονικά περιοδικά. Τον Ιούνιο του 2022 κυκλοφόρησε το βιβλίο του με τίτλο «How Organizations Can Make the Most of Online Learning». Έχει επίσης συμμετάσχει ως προσκεκλημένος ομιλητής σε πολλά διεθνή συνέδρια σχετικά με τη διαδικτυακή εκπαίδευση και μάθηση. Η συμβολή του υπήρχε καθοριστική και η παρουσία του δυναμική και διαρκής στον διεθνή επιστημονικό χώρο της εκπαιδευτικής τεχνολογίας. Ιδιαίτερη μνήα, βέβαια, θα πρέπει να γίνει στη συνεργασία του κυρίου David Guralnick με το Πανεπιστήμιό μας και το Εργαστήριο Νέων Τεχνολογιών και Εκπαίδευσης από Απόσταση του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών. Οι επιστημονικές του απόψεις αποτέλεσαν το εφαλτήριο για την προώθηση της έρευνας στην εκπαιδευτική τεχνολογία και την υποστήριξη φοιτητών και φοιτητριών, καθώς και νέων επιστημόνων. Dear Professor David Guralnick, once again, I would like to extend our great appreciation and express our sincere thanks for your gracious presence in our university. This is a major honor for our university, which is gratefully acknowledged. Thank you very much.
Έπαιρνος του τιμωμένου από την κοσμήτωρα της Σχολής Επιστημών Αγωγής, καθηγήτρια κυρία Πολυξένη Παγκέ.
Αξιότιμη κυρία Πρίτανη, αξιότιμη κυρία Πρόξενε, αξιότιμη κύριε πρώην Πρίτανη, εκπρόσωποι του Δήμου, αξιότιμη κύριε πρώην Πρίτανη, αξιότιμο κύριο μέλος του Συμβουλίου, κύριε Λακίτση, αξιότιμη κυρία Αντιπρίτανη, αξιότιμη κύριε Πρόεδρε, αγαπητοί συνάδελφοι, κυρίες και κύριοι, αγαπητέ David. Η ημέρα σήμερα είναι αφιερωμένη στον καθηγητή David Guralnick και είναι χαρά και τιμή μας να βρισκόμαστε εδώ για να αποδώσουμε αυτόν τον τίτλο τιμής στον κύριο Guralnick, ο οποίος έχει αφιερώσει την καριέρα του στη φιλοσοφία της δημιουργίας διαδικτυακών εμπειριών που βελτιώνουν τη μάθηση και την απόδοση στην εργασία. Η προσέγγιση του David συνδυάζει τους τομείς της εκπαίδευσης, της επιστήμης των υπολογιστών, τεχνητής νοημοσύνης, που είναι κάτι σύγχρονο στις μέρες μας, και ιδιαίτερα το πλαισιώνει αυτό με μια νέα δημιουργική προσέγγιση. Το έργο του επαναπροσδιορίζει τις εκπαιδευτικές και εργασιακές μαθησιακές εμπειρίες με τρόπους που είναι ευχάριστοι, αποτελεσματικοί και εξατομικευμένοι. Είναι σε όλους μας γνωστό ότι εκείνο το οποίο μας προσφέρει πια η τεχνητή νοημοσύνη είναι η εξατομικευμένη μάθηση. Είναι κάτι πάνω στο οποίο ο κύριος Guralnick έχει δουλέψει πάρα πολλά χρόνια πάνω σε αυτό. Ο David Guralnick είναι κάτοχος διδακτορικού διπλώματος στην επιστήμη των υπολογιστών από το Πανεπιστήμιο του Northwestern. Κατά τη διάρκεια των 30 ετών περίπου που ασχολείται με τη διαδικτυακή μάθηση, σχεδίασε και ανέπτυξε εκπαιδευτικές εφαρμογές βασισμένες σε προσομοιώσεις, ηλεκτρονικά συστήματα υποστήριξης της απόδοσης και εξειδικευμένα εργαλεία συγγραφής που επιτρέπουν σε μη τεχνικούς χρήστες, όπως συγγραφείς γενικότερα και εκπαιδευτές, να δημιουργούν διαδικτυακές εμπειρίες μάθησης. Είναι γνωστό σήμερα ότι η χρήση της εκπαίδευσης από απόσταση είναι μία ανάγκη και ένα εργαλείο στα χέρια όλων των εκπαιδευτικών και στα χέρια της κοινωνίας μας γενικότερα. Στα πιο αξιοσημείωτα επιτεύγματα του David είναι η δημιουργία της πρώτης προσομοίωσης με την μέθοδο Learn by Doing ως εκπαιδευτικό τμήμα, ως τμήμα παιδαγωγικό. Βλέπουμε πάρα πολύ την πρόοδο πάνω στις διάφορες θεωρίες μάθησης, σε διάφορα μοντέλα τα οποία μπορούν να εφαρμοστούν και με ποιον τρόπο οι τεχνολογίες συνδυάζονται με τη μάθηση. Το Learn by Doing είναι ένας τρόπος με τον οποίο έχει συνδυάσει τη μάθηση με τη χρήση της τεχνολογίας. Και το χρησιμοποίησε αυτό το εργαλείο όχι μόνο στην εκπαίδευση, αλλά και για εταιρικούς σκοπούς, και ήταν το πρώτο εργαλείο το οποίο χρησιμοποιήθηκε σε κοινό για την ηλεκτρονική μάθηση. Έχει λάβει πάνω από 300 βραβεία για το σχεδιασμό ηλεκτρονικής μάθησης και το έργο του έχει παρουσιαστεί στο περιοδικό Wired, στη Wall Street Journal και στο περιοδικό Training. Είναι τακτικά προσκεκλημένος καθηγητής και ομιλητής τόσο σε βιομηχανίες όσο και σε ακαδημαϊκές εκδηλώσεις. Με το έργο του συνδυάζει την βιομηχανία, την εφαρμοσμένη έρευνα και παράλληλα την ακαδημαϊκή έρευνα. Ο David είναι σημερινός πρόεδρος και διευθύνων σύμβουλος στο Kaleidoscope Learning, το οποίο χρησιμοποιεί και τον ελληνικό όρο Kaleidoscope. Είναι η εταιρεία με την οποία έχει αναπτύξει προγράμματα σε e-learning και παράλληλα είναι ο σημερινός πρόεδρος το International E-Learning Association και ο ιδρυτής και πρόεδρος το The Learning Ideas Conference. Όλοι γνωρίζουμε το πόσο δυνατό και πόσο σημαντικό είναι στις μέρες μας τα πορίσματα που βγαίνουν από το συνέδριο αυτό, The Learning Ideas Conference, και πόσο σημαντικό είναι στην εκπαίδευση γενικότερα. Τα πορίσματα αυτού του συνεδρίου γίνονται κανόνας για να χρησιμοποιηθούν αργότερα σε διάφορες εφαρμογές στα πανεπιστήμια και σε διάφορα ακαδημαϊκά άλλα ιδρύματα. Είναι αρχισυντάκτης του International Journal on Advanced Corporate Learning, πρόεδρος των International E-Learning Awards και, όπως είπαμε πριν, adjunct professor στο Columbia University, όπου διδάσκει μαθήματα σχετικά με το σχεδιασμό διαδικτυακής μάθησης στον εργασιακό χώρο. Προεδρεύει μεταπτυχιακών προγραμμάτων και παράλληλα είναι υποστηρικτής και supervisor σε διδακτορικά. Έχει διατελέσει μέλος πολλών συντακτικών επιτροπών για διάφορα περιοδικά και συνέδρια και όπως σας έχει πει και η κυρία Πρίτανης, είναι συγγραφέας αρκετών βιβλίων. Ένα από αυτά, το πιο γνωστό βιβλίο που έχει συγγράψει, είναι How Organizations can make the most of online learning. Είναι ένα βιβλίο σταθμός στην εποχή τη σημερινή. Επίσης, είναι editor σε Creative Approaches to Technology Enhanced Learning for the Workplace and Higher Education. Μέσα από τα διάφορα συνέδρια και από το Learning Ideas Conference προωθούνται ιδέες με ποιον τρόπο μπορούμε να εφαρμόσουμε μεθόδους της ηλεκτρονικής μάθησης σε εργασιακά περιβάλλοντα. Έχει συγγράψει διάφορα βιβλία και άρθρα και είναι σημαντικό το έργο του στο Reimagining Learning Experiences with the use of AI. Η χρήση της νέας τεχνολογίας, πώς μπορεί να μας αλλάξει και με ποιον τρόπο μπορεί να αλλάξει γενικά τη μάθηση. Είναι πολύ σημαντική η προσφορά του γενικότερα στον χώρο της εκπαίδευσης και θα ήθελα να τον συγχαρώ που βρίσκεται αυτή τη στιγμή κοντά μας και να ευχαριστήσω που συνδιοργανώνουμε το πρόγραμμα, το θεμερινό σεμινάριο με θέμα Artificial Intelligence for Teaching and Learning. Είναι ένα διήμερο θερινό σεμινάριο που δείχνει με ποιον τρόπο μπορούμε να εφαρμόσουμε την τεχνητή νοημοσύνη στην εκπαίδευση και στη μάθηση και αυτή τη στιγμή τα πορίσματα τα οποία έχουμε πάρει είναι πολύ σημαντικά, διότι στο συνέδριο αυτό, στο θερινό αυτό σεμινάριο ειδικότερα, έχουμε καθηγητές από όλο τον κόσμο, οι οποίοι με τον τρόπο τους δείχνουν διάφορες προοπτικές και διάφορες λύσεις δίνονται για θέματα πάνω στην τεχνητή νοημοσύνη και πώς αυτή μπορεί να εφαρμοστεί στην εκπαίδευση. I would like to thank you all. I would like to thank David for being with us, and I welcome you all to this ceremony. Thank you very much.
Ανάγνωση των κειμένων του ψηφίσματος του τμήματος, της αναγόρευσης και του διδακτορικού διπλώματος από τον πρόεδρο του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών, καθηγητή κύριο Χαρίλαο Ζάραγκα.
Πανεπιστήμιο Ιωαννίνων. Ψήφισμα του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών της Σχολής Επιστημών Αγωγής. Τύχη αγαθή, κριτανευούσης εν το Ιωαννίνης Πανεπιστήμιο, Άνης Κωνσταντίνου Μπατιστάτου, κοσμητευούσης εν τη Σχολή Επιστημών Αγωγής, Πολυξένης Ελευθερίου Παγκέ, προεδρεύοντος εν το Παιδαγωγικό Τμήμα Νηπιαγωγών Χαριλάου Κωνσταντίνου Ζάραγκα. Εισηγησαμένης δε της καθηγήτριας Πολυξένης Ελευθερίου Παγκέ, έδοξεν ομοθήμος το τμήματι επειδή David Guralnick, καθηγητής Πανεπιστημίου Κολούμπια των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών της Αμερικής, τα περί την εκπαιδευτική τεχνολογία εξόχως πραγματευόμενος, διαπρεπής εραστής της παιδείας, αναδέδεικτε ικανοκτόμενος συναφών παιδαγωγημάτων πλούτων, διατριβές και συγκράμαση των τούτων σπουδήν εις άκρον προωθήσιση διαπρέψας δε εις την έρευναν και την διδασκαλίαν της εκπαιδευτικής τεχνολογίας. Επένεσε αυτόν και του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών επίτιμον διδάκτορα ανάδειξε. Το δε ψήφισμα, το δε εις μεμβράναν, ανάγραψε και τον του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών, προέδρον εν τη αιθούση τη μεγάλη ανάγνοντα και τα στατιμάς ανίποντα επιδούμενα, αυτό εν εμέρε η αναγόρευσης γέννηται καθ' νενόμιστε. Εγένετο εν Ιωαννίνης τη 10η του μηνός Ιουλίου, έτη Τετάρτο και 20 και δυσχιλιοστό. Ο πρόεδρος του τμήματος Χαριλάου Κωνσταντίνος Ζάραγας. Αναγόρυψης. Επειδή το Παιδαγωγικό Τμήμα Νηπιαγωγών της Σχολής Επιστημών Αγωγής του εν Ιωαννίνης Πανεπιστημίου, David Guralnick, καθηγητή Πανεπιστημίου Κολούμπια των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών της Αμερικής, άξιον απέφυνε το επίτιμου διδακτορικού αξιώματος, η δε πρίτανης τι του τμήματος γνώμη επινεύει. Διατάφτα εγώ, Χαρίλαος Κωνσταντίνου Ζάραγκας, καθηγητής κινητικής αγωγής και μαθήσεως, νύνδε του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών, πρόεδρος χρώμενος, τη δυνάμει, ειν παρά το πανεπιστημιακών νόμων λαβών έχων το David Guralnick, επίτιμον διδάκτορα του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών, δημόσια αναγορεύω και πάσα στας προνομίαστα το πανεπιστημιακό τούτο αξιώματι παραπόμενας αυτό απονέμω. Εγένετον Ιωαννίνης τη 10η του μηνός Ιουλίου, έτη Τετάρτο και 20 και δυσχιλιοστό. Ο πρόεδρος του τμήματος Χαρίλαος Κωνσταντίνος Ζάραγκας. Πριτανευούσεις εν τον Ιωαννίνης Πανεπιστημίου, Άνης Κωνσταντίνου Μπατιστάτου, καθηγήτριας ιατρικής, κοσμητευούσης εν τη Σχολή Επιστημών Αγωγής, Πολυξένης Ελευθερίου Παγκέ, καθηγήτριας πληροφορικής και εφηρμοσμένων μαθηματικών, Χαρίλαος Κωνσταντίνου Ζάραγκας, καθηγητής κινητικής αγωγής και μαθήσεως, επί του παρόντος πρόεδρος του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών. David Guralnick, καθηγητή Πανεπιστημίου Κολούμπια των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών της Αμερικής, δόγματι ομοθήμο του Παιδαγωγικού Τμήματος Νηπιαγωγών, εις τους επιτίμους διδάκτορας ενέκρινε. Εγένετο εν Ιωαννίνης τη 10η του μηνός Ιουλίου, έτη Τετάρτο και 20 και δυσχιλιοστό. Ευχαριστώ.
Περιένδυση του τιμωμένου με την Τίβενο του Πανεπιστημίου Ιωαννίνων από την κοσμήτωρα της Σχολής Επιστημών Αγωγής, καθηγήτρια κυρία Πολυξένη Παγκέ, και επίδοση των τίτλων από την πρίτανη του Πανεπιστημίου Ιωαννίνων, καθηγήτρια κυρία Άννα Μπατιστάτου. Ομιλία του τιμωμένου με θέμα Online Learning, a Potential Future. Dear Professor, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you so much for this honor. I'm just somewhat overcome, so it's really just a wonderful honor. I'm so happy to be here and so happy to receive this. So, I've been asked to talk a little bit about sort of, what my thoughts are and my work has been, and kind of sum this up as online learning, a potential future. So I'll talk for a little bit about that. First, a little background. You've heard a lot about me by this point, but just to summarize a little bit, my view of learning experience design, and that's really the focus of what I'm going to talk about, is what kinds of experiences we can create and what we can do with technology to improve learning in sort of perhaps some radical ways in some ways. And my view of learning experience design is very holistic. It draws on work from education, from computer science, from cognitive science, from motivational theory, as well as creativity. This seems to go on its own. Hold on. AI seems to have taken over my mouse, so there you go. Okay. All right, look at that. Everything's always just a little bit. Okay. So, Yeah, so my view of e-learning design is holistic, and so it draws on all this as well as creativity. So, the idea to me is to build and design experiences that are meaningful and relevant to people. So there's based on research, but also with a strong practical element. What's going to mean something to somebody? What's going to be an interesting experience for them to do, and not necessarily. I mean, sometimes it's going to require a lot of thinking and a lot of hard work, but it can be done in a way that's really motivating and meaningful, and that's really the goal, I think, to me. My background, as you've now heard a little bit of before, draws is from several different areas. A lot of it's been in corporate learning, and professional development, some in higher education as well. My company, Kaleidoscope Learning, works mainly with other companies, so we do workplace learning for everything from the retail industry to legal education for lawyers to training clinicians, so all kinds of different learning experiences that for different jobs. And I also teach at Columbia University, and I'm the founding chair of the Learning Ideas Conference. So at Columbia, I teach about online learning design, so I teach master's and PhD students about how to design learning experiences that are really going to be effective and enjoyable for people. So to talk a little bit about technology and learning experiences, my focus for decades has been on designing learning experiences that combine progressive learning theory with creative uses of technology to produce new and interesting experiences that reach a large-scale audience. And that's one of the key points is, when you have, even if you have the best teacher in the world, there's a limit on how much that person can, how many people that person can reach. And there just is a natural limit on that, right? Like I had a wonderful experience that I always remember in 5th grade. I one of the best teachers I've ever had. And I was fortunate enough to be at a school, we had a class of 15 people. And so she was able to give us individualized attention. And to get that on a large scale, you kind of don't have the money, you don't have the teachers to necessarily do that, the professors to necessarily do that at the scale that we want to reach people around the world. So to me, what we can really do with technology is create experiences that can reach a large-scale audience and capture a lot of the really great things that we have about great learning experiences, and then use the time of professors and teachers maybe a little bit more, more effectively because we're using technology for some other things. So that's kind of the short version of what I want to do is design new experiences that make the most of new technologies, following active learning principles, situated learning, and in the end, it's really all about the experiences that we create. So the question that I like to ask a lot of times, especially these days, is what future do we want to have, especially in this field that leads into society as a whole. And I think those of us in this field have the opportunity to really influence that, and particularly now with new technologies coming out, and particularly now at a critical time, and it's a critical time in the world. We're really living in a time of change right now. It's constant change, it's rapid change, it's seemingly uncontrollable change. Everything is changing almost day to day. We're in a unique position as people, as educators, who are learning experience designers, who are other sorts of related experts, who can affect the future. And so we think about what kind of future we want to have, especially in the education world. We can make changes in our work that can affect society, that can affect how we make use of technology, that can affect people's views of a lot of things, and their ability to think creatively and critically about the world around them. And so I think now is a time where what we do really has a great possible effect, and the effects on society could be really, really huge. A lot of this, to me, rides on the role of technology. Technology, especially generative AI, but not only generative AI, virtual reality, augmented reality, holograms, sensors, other types of elements. I could go on. It's always interesting and always has a lot of opportunity, but I think especially now more than ever. And again, when you ask the question, what future do we want to have? We want to help people live, work, and function in a changing society. We live in a world right now where there's lots of misinformation, there's disinformation. Critical thinking skills are absolutely crucial, more than ever. And we live in a world, especially in the US, and I think kind of everywhere, where in some ways there's been a backlash in some ways against education the way it's been. People kind of say, well, what do I need that? I just want to go get a job. And we have an opportunity to use technology in the right ways to help people really see the value and help people learn the skills that will help them function best in society, and also see the value of a broad-based education, of understanding how to think critically, of understanding different areas and how to draw from them and why that's valuable, and not lose that. And it's, especially in the US, a little bit of a dangerous time right now, I think, in that regard. To me, technology can help or it can hurt. And we have the opportunity to do the right thing. It depends on how we use it, what kinds of experiences we create. It's often really easy to use technology to make things more efficient. Okay. And that's, that's often a good thing. But often it's making things more efficient for people who are creating learning experiences. And the learning experiences you get aren't always going to be the best. So we want to think about, efficiency matters, but how do we create the right experiences for people who are students, who are workplace learners, who are lifelong learners, and all of those, all those people. So how do we create the right kinds of experiences that are going to be meaningful and relevant, and they're going to scale up and reach a large audience? So efficiency is one goal, but it's hardly the only goal. And we want to take advantage of what we can do with technology to create these really interesting and meaningful experiences. Ideally, to me, technology puts people in positions, if we design the right experiences, where they can learn all kinds of skills. They learn not just information, but they learn how to think, how to make decisions, how to face challenging situations. You can put people in a simulation and they can face challenges that they wouldn't face in real life, or that they would need to be able to face before they had the opportunity in real life when it's really going to matter. So you can put people in a simulated environment where they can learn to make decisions where it's safe, right? Suppose you're in a simulation and you're learning, how to govern a city, and you have a crisis, and you get to practice doing that. And if in real life you have a crisis, maybe you'll be able to do better, and you won't make some of the mistakes that you made in the simulation. There's so many different things we can do to prepare people for life and for work. And the simplest path is not always the easiest. It's not always the one to follow. Again, what future do we want to have? We're dealing with big questions with no easy answers, but I think the answer is often not the status quo. And there are a lot of market forces that tend to take over. It's easy for, I know I see this in the US, there's a lot of money toward getting things out quickly and not necessarily getting the best thing out. And we have an opportunity to try to push back against that a little bit. To me, learning when technology is employed creatively, it can be practical, it can be creative for the learners, it can be a lot of fun. It's not always, just about being right. It's about exploring, it's about developing your skills, it's about pursuing interests, it's about being free to make mistakes and fail and learn from those experiences and try things out and live in a world where you feel that you can try things and, reason things out, understand stories, think of creative ways, all these things. So again, what future do we want to have? And that's the key question. And I want to show you a little bit about how AI can fit in. I think AI has a lot of potential, and there also is some, certainly some promises, but some concerns as well. But how we use it is really up to us. So I'm going to actually show you a couple of demos. One is way, way back. So this is an AI-based simulation. I mentioned a lot of my work was in the workplace and still is. This is for Boston Chicken, which was a fast food restaurant chain, or kind of fast food. They were rotisserie chicken, kind of home style, better than fast food was kind of their thing. They became Boston Market, and then they've kind of, I believe, finally went out of business recently, earlier this year. They had a good run. And this was a simulation that we built in 1991, something that I designed to teach cashiers how to use their cash register, which sounds like a simple job, but is actually not that simple. So the audience for this was new cashiers at Boston Chicken, and the goals were for them to learn how to ring up orders quickly and accurately. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit of a demo of what this was. So the cash register that they had looked just like the thing on the right. So it was a touchscreen register in their case, and they had to ring things up. The rest of this is what I added as kind of the learning experience. On the left-hand side, you see at the bottom 3 questions I can always ask: now, what, how, and why. We see a customer coming up with an order. She's already, in the way they work, received her food items. She went to a different counter, got her food items. Now she's ready to pay. Some questions I can ask her, and then something toward the top where you can get reinforced what this is. And there also are meters at the top, speed and accuracy. And I'll talk more about those in a minute. So I see her coming up to me. I should ring this up. I might not know what to do, and I'll say, now what? And the tutoring component says, oh, you need to ring up the customer's order. So I have a little tutoring component, and I don't know how to do that, so I'll ask, how do I do that? And it says, well, click the 1/2 the size key. That's the key that you see flashing now. Okay? And you should see it flashing. Oops, I didn't do that all that well. Well, I'll get it flashing in a second. There we go. All right, so first I need to ring up the customer's order, then I press the 1/2 the size key, and that's flashing now. There we go. Okay, so, all right. Okay. All right. And there's the key flashing. Always Always get the demo right. So I asked what I should do is bring up the customer's order, tells me what key to use, and if you ask why, which I will now ask, it says I should use that because that's the most efficient way to ring up this order, okay? And the order is a half chicken with tortellini salad and fruit salad, and those are the sides. So it's a half with sides. Okay, interestingly, now, this is the most efficient way. It turns out this is also the right way to get the price correct for the customer, so there's more to it than that. I'm going to go ahead and click the half with sides key, and it rings up, and I see the half with sides key comes up on the cash register. And you notice I'm still doing pretty well. It doesn't really seem that, but I'm doing pretty well on speed and accuracy. So I've certainly been right on accuracy. I haven't felt like I'm good on speed, but for demo purposes, I'm doing well on speed. All right, so it gives you a feel for what this is, and the entire course was 30 of these scenarios. They have 30 different customers so that they get used to the very common cases and also some of the more tricky cases to deal with as well. And doing this prepared people really nicely to do the job, and so they tested this out at a couple of their test restaurants first, and people did really well at it. Some key elements of what this was a learn by doing simulation with guidance and feedback. So there's a lot of education behind this. This is, I'm learning by actually doing, and I get guidance from this coaching component, and there's feedback. If I make mistakes, which you didn't see me do here, it would jump in and tell me, that wasn't the best thing to do. Sometimes it's just wrong, sometimes it's something that is less efficient, so it's not ideal, and the tutor would be able to explain it to me too. If I ask, well, why was that wrong? It'll tell me, well, it was too inefficient, or you don't press that key yet because that key is for later in the process. And so it knows a lot of things. The performance meter is really interesting because they added a game-like feel that maintained the realism of the task. So they weren't just games for game's sake, but they were authentic measures of what you did. So if you're going to be good at this job, you're going to be good at speed and you're going to be good at accuracy. And so the performance meters added this in a realistic way. And it was really effective in that way because it was the real, measuring you on the real job. And the challenge aspect of this game was really, really effective. People really liked being able to play this game as it was. It's a job they were learning how to do, but also it was a fun way for them to do it, and they were motivated, to do well at it. And you had a measure of how you were doing in a way that felt, that was authentic and felt real. The guidance and feedback used AI techniques. So there was a lot of effort on the AI side. There were, this was early AI. This was not large language models. This was the knowledge representation symbolic AI school, and that's what we did in my the Research Institute at Northwestern that you heard in my bio, where I did my PhD back in the late 80s, early 90s. And through this, there was a lot of manual effort to define what sort of the right things to do were in each situation, and suboptimal things, and incorrect things where there was kind of a good reason for it, and kind of everything else was, well, you might hit a random key, and we don't have a lot of stuff to say to you about that, except what you should do. But the guidance and feedback was carefully scripted out, and there was a set of rules, and so basically an AI engine running rules in each case to tell you what, to tell the tutor what to say. So if I click now what, the tutor was running a set of rules on some data that was manually defined. So it did not learn itself in the way the large language model does, but it was also guaranteed to be correct and accurate, and so that's kind of a little bit of the balance there. So it was more effort, but it was correct. So it was an interesting one. Let me talk to you about what a potential future learning experience might be. And here's an example of a potential future student. And suppose he's studying ancient Greece, and I actually came up with this example quite some time before I knew I'd be here. So actually it makes me more nervous to be here telling this, using the Greece examples. I hope it's right. But in this imaginary world, he's learning about ancient Greece by projecting on his wall. And he projects a 3D image on his wall of his bedroom. Doesn't have to go anywhere, projects this. And he can explore ancient Greece. And he might go take a look and says, is that the Acropolis? And he has an AI tutor with him. And she is a coach, and she comes in and says, well, yeah, it is. And she's got some more information for him. He might talk to her by typing. He might talk to her by voice and just speak. And this is a demo of something, the first one was a demo of something we really did. This is a demo of something that many of these features are things we could do now. Some things I think we're not quite there yet. But it's a future that, I can imagine, and it's a future that's pretty close to, in some ways, to being a reality. He may then ask, did the Acropolis look the same over the years? And she'll tell him, well, we don't know much about this appearance, but before the Archaic era, gives him a little history. One of the nice things is he's driving the conversation. So this could be set up so that if he doesn't have questions, she could decide to push him in directions. She could decide, even if he does have questions, to answer in a way that guides him to something. So this is your own personalized coach helping you out. Okay? She tells him to take a look. He takes a look. He asks another question about who Pisistratus was. She explains, gives a little more information. So again, we're sort of seeing his interests driving a lot of the conversation, but it, you know, doesn't have to always be that way. He may also say something else, you know, so much bigger than I imagined. Because I think ideally to me, education is much more human and personal, right? So this is an interaction that's not just about learning facts, he's learning other things. He's learning maybe about society eventually. He's following his interests. He has a lot of control over the experience. But he also, you know, he also can feel like he's having an interaction with a person and having a conversation. He might also leave the virtual world and go there today and have the AI coach with him. He may have students with him in person. He may have other students online collaborating with him and talking about things. They may see what he sees. There's so many different ways we can go with this, using technology in different ways. So that's one possible future. So a few key elements of this, you know, following progressive learning theory. So kind of the, you know, behind the scenes is lots of progressive learning theory with modern technology. This is experiential learning in a very realistic context. Here, he didn't really have an activity, but we could give him activities. We could ask him to go learn something in particular. We could ask him to go compile some information or put together, you know, a conversation that he might want to have. All sorts, you know, are limited only by our imagination. He had coaching guidance. The AI coach is with him the whole time, helping him through. Feedback from a coach, potentially from peers. You know, could have had more activities. He had learner control, but assisted and advised. So if he didn't know what to do, she might suggest, here's what you want to look at. Here's what you'd find interesting. And in this world, ideally, the coach would learn a lot about you. So the coach would know about his interests, about his strengths and weaknesses, and might be able to guide him in certain ways. There is a little bit of a danger that that's a lot of personal information, and we have to be careful from a technology security standpoint. But, you know, ideally, some of this is not replacing people, but giving you something that you can get that you just couldn't get. We couldn't reach this number of people on a large scale. We couldn't get people to have this level of personalized interaction any other way. It would be nice if there were enough teachers and professors to be able to handle that load and get to know people and stay with them, but it's not practical. This is something that, when we can build it as we're getting closer, would be practical and interesting and reach people, like I said, on a large-scale audience. So it's an immersive, personalized experience, and we could add more learning by doing as well. The AI elements. There's an AI coach interacting realistically in audio and text, maybe some kind of simulated video with a learner. And we're tracking learner performance and learner ideas. You know, performance means more than just how did you do on a test. It's like, what were you interested in? What did you follow up on? What kinds of questions did you ask? It might be any of those things. So we're ideally getting to know who this person is and what they're interested in, and we can help guide them. And, you know, that could lead to other things too. Like, there are certain things that people should probably just know, but there are things that maybe they could learn in a context that's interesting to them. I used to have conversations about teaching math in different contexts that were interesting to the actual learner. So if someone's interested in sports, maybe they get some sports examples and learn statistics, for example, in the context of sports. And, you know, the same statistical concepts you would learn some other way, but in a content area that's interesting to them and meaningful and might, you know, make it feel more relevant. Or maybe they want a job in sports, and so it feels especially relevant, not just to have the statistical background, but to learn it within that context. The more we know about the person, the more we can start to do things like that that are more personalized. This can also be used in an adaptive way to determine future learning suggestions. What should they work on? We can have a nuanced view of past performance. We can have good assessment and reporting. I always worry a little bit about how much personal reporting gets misused, but I think it's stuff that we really want to do. You know, there's a tendency in the US, I think, the more they know about your performance, the more it kind of comes back to, it kind of goes in your personnel file, even if you're a student. And I think there's a little bit of a danger to that, but mostly this can be used in the right ways. So a little bit more, I want to talk about some sort of underlying themes behind my views of online learning and education. So first I want to tell you a short story about design. And I think design is a critical concept, and it means so much more than what's on the outside. I think when people hear design, they think of kind of graphics, and they think of what something looks like and feels like. And there's an old quote from Steve Jobs about how design is so much more, that it starts kind of at the core of something, and it's the inner being, and you build out around it. And I totally agree with that, and that's my experience as well, that design really means start with the audience and goals. Think about what it is that you want to build, what kind of product, what kind of experience, and what it looks like on the outside stems from that. And starts with what is it that they want to be able to do, and in what way that's going to be, is going to be the most comfortable and meaningful to that audience. So this little example here, this is a little, some of you may have seen this little MP3 player from back in 2002, I think, was actually the year, by a company called iRiver. And this was the first one that I ever had. And at the time that came out, it was one of the only really ones, one of the new ones on the market. It was this little thing that was nice to go running with. And it was a nice little MP3 player. And at the time, that wasn't really a thing. But it really was for early adopters. Because if you wanted to get music on this, the process was something like, get the music from somewhere, which mostly at the time meant taking CDs and creating MP3 files out of it, which already is a fairly technical job. Naming your files in some way that made sense to you and would probably have the song name in it so that when it came up on the small screen, you would know what song it was, sort of. Connecting this to your PC, because it only worked with PCs, copying the files, it acted like an external hard drive. Put them on this, disconnect it, take it for a run, and have this little tiny screen. You could kind of play them in order, and that's about it. It was nice and useful. It was better than nothing. It was really for people who were technical. It wasn't an easy process. So the entire experience of using it was not, wasn't easy for them to do, but it wasn't really a well-designed experience. They were the first ones, but it was a technical experience. It wasn't something that was easy to do. Later, really that same year, really just not long after, Apple came out with the first iPod. And it really changed everything. Not just because the iPod itself was pretty and easy to hold and all the things that Apple was known for, especially at the time. But Apple's entire ecosystem and process was, you go to the iTunes store, which was new at the time, you buy a song for 99 cents, which wasn't all that much money, you download it to your computer, you can listen to it on your computer. But to put things on this little machine, you plug it in, it syncs automatically, you can make some playlists, you can do that on your computer where you have the bigger screen, and everything will just work. And basically it did. And so that well-designed experience changed everything. And to some technologists, and we still see this today, it was like, okay, well, those are both MP3 players. They're kind of the same thing. But they didn't feel like the same thing to most people. Okay? To someone who was really well-versed in technology, maybe there wasn't that big a difference. Even to me, it was, not so hard to use the other one. I had a computer science background. And I had, I was willing to put the time in to learn it. This was made easy in the ways that were set up for people to have the experience that they want. Their focus could be on their experiences, making their playlists, getting their music, deciding what they want to listen to, rearranging things, the activities that they wanted to be doing. And the learning experiences that we design with technology can be like that. Put people in a situation so that, they're not, the experience that they have is about the activities that they find interesting and meaningful and relevant and help them learn the skills that they need to learn, whether they're critical thinking skills, decision-making skills, specific skills for a job or for a particular content area, or all of the above. One last piece, when we have new technologies, we always have new methods of interaction. And this has been true over the years. But sometimes it gets a little bit lost because sometimes it's very easy to see a new technology and try to emulate and mimic the kinds of interactions we have now. So, we have classes now that kind of got built up because there weren't really other ways to reach a large-scale audience. And I'll talk a little bit, about that as well. Like, back in the old days when we had apprenticeships, people would learn by doing with a master craftsman or whatever. But when we need to, have mass education, we need more people to learn. There weren't enough experts. And so people learned by some other method. The other method was you put people in a class and the classes got bigger. We have universities in the US where you'll have 400 or 500 people in a lecture hall because it's the only way to do it. We build the right technology, it can become more personal rather than less personal because they're having their own personal interactions. And then the professors who have limited time can spend that time more wisely. But as we have new methods, new technologies, we had radio, we had sound. Then there was TV, and we had video, and we did different things. Right? It wasn't just radio with pictures. And at first, maybe some of it was radio with pictures, although I think they leveraged things from the stage maybe a little bit more. I wasn't around for that, for the early days of TV. Then we had VCRs. So, I remember the early days when you didn't have VCRs, and if you wanted to watch a show, you had to watch it when it was on. That was it. With VCRs, you could tape shows, you could then watch them when you wanted, and even where you wanted. You could take your tape somewhere else. And it changed people's behavior. Right? So instead of having to be home at 8 o'clock on Thursday night or whatever, you could not be home and watch the show that everybody was talking about, but watch it when you got home from plans, or watch it the next day. And there was no Twitter, so you wouldn't get, any spoilers. So there was that too. Video game controllers, different models of interaction. And again, each time there's a new method of interaction, we can do different things. We can create different experiences, and people experience them in different ways. There's computers with, mouse and graphical user interface. And then, video games kind of go before and after, I think, on that one. Laptops, mobile technology, smartphones, tablets, more mobile phones, and then so many different technologies today. And today we're still at a time with new technologies being more mainstream. Not just AI, but so many. So historically, when we see new technology, we always see new methods of interaction, whether it's touch, whether it's mobility, whether it's time shifting, whatever it was at the time. And as we have new technology, there are different things we can do with it. With virtual reality, it's great for simulations. Put people in an immersive world. Some of the things that I was showing before would work well with virtual reality goggles, right? You put people in this world and they're immersed in it, whether they're working with a customer or they're exploring ancient Greece or whatever it might be. Being immersed in a way that you really can't fully be on a computer is a really nice thing. And you have gesture control. I got to play with the new, not that new anymore, but the Quest 3 from Meta, which is the latest one. And the gesture control I thought was really pretty good. And you can do a lot of things if you build the right experiences. But you look at experience design in a different way. You're not just moving a class to virtual reality, and not just moving a talk to virtual reality, though there are benefits to doing that in some ways as well. But you can build experiences that are based on making use of the technology that you have and are designed around that technology in the right ways. They're designed to be interesting experiences that use the technology you have access to. Augmented reality. Take the world you live in, do a little bit more with it, okay? Great for what we call performance support in the workplace, something that helps people just in time when they need it. Holograms are really interesting. That's really kind of what I showed at the beginning, and there's interesting work going on in that area as well, including a medical simulation where there's a 3D, projection of what a patient looks like, and people can actually do things and interact with it. That's really, really cool. AI, we've talked about a little bit already. Personalized, intelligent interactions could mean a lot of things. Smart coaches, personalized collaboration, all sorts of things that we can do. Other technologies, some of which are out, already in some form. I guess these all are. Smartwatches and Alexa and 5G networks are getting more prevalent, which really helps. Bendable and foldable screens gives you a bigger screen more easily. And the last one is some brainwave sensors that I kind of have some mixed feelings about, but they have some potential use if we decide they're kind of an okay thing to do. So overall, we can use AI to help create more humanizing experiences if we design the right types of experiences. AI and new technologies can help us create individualized, engaging, relevant, respectful learning experiences that are on a large scale and give us the ability to change society. We can reach people anywhere with an internet connection. We can reach people who don't have access to experiences like this now. We can do all sorts of different things and change sort of, ideally to me, the perception that, learners are not people with empty heads and we're going to fill them up as people, from this stage. But that people have agency, that people have interests, that they start from a young age with, a mix of following their own interests and being exposed to new things. And both of those, I think, are, at the right balance are what we really want. And if we do the right things with technology, we can get to a much better place that way on a large scale. Again, the question is, what future do we want to have? And I'm going to close with a quote from Isaac Asimov, famous science fiction writer and thinker from the US. And this is something that he wrote in 1983, where he predicted the world of 2019, which we are all aware was 5 years ago. And his vision of education matches a lot of my vision of education. And he predicted education would be revolutionized by the computer. And finally, every youngster, and indeed every person, could learn what they want to learn in their own time, at their own speed, in their own way. And education would become fun because it would bubble up from within and not be forced in from without. And I think that's a lot of the philosophy that we want to have. And there certainly are things that people should learn and need to learn, and they can get guided to those in a lot of different ways, but also maintain their own agency, maintain their own interests, and have experiences that are meaningful and relevant, and with the right use of technology that can help us do that on a large scale. And that's a lot of my own vision of what online learning can be and should be. And there have certainly been a lot of steps along the way, and we all continue to take more steps. And I think maybe some of this is the goal that we want to shoot for. So with that, thank you so much for your time today and for this honor. I'm just so pleased to be here. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ακολουθεί μουσικό πρόγραμμα από τη φοιτήτρια του Τμήματος Φιλολογίας, κυρία Μαριάμ Πλέουρα. Κυρίες και κύριοι, σας ευχαριστούμε για την τιμητική παρουσία σας στη σημερινή τελετή. Μπορείτε να συγχαρείτε τον τιμόμενο και τις αρχές του Πανεπιστημίου Ιωαννίνων κατά την έξοδό σας από την αίθουσα. Αποχώρηση των αρχών του Πανεπιστημίου Ιωαννίνων.
Τώρα, μετά.